There we go. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining. We're going to give a couple of minutes just to let all of the attendees go ahead and join, and we'll go ahead and get started. Happy Thursday. Hello to everyone joining. Good afternoon. Good to see a lot of familiar names. We'll be kicking things off in just 1 minute here. All right. I think we're just about at a good point. So let's go ahead and get things started here. Mark, good to see you. Thanks for joining. Terrell, good to see you. Awesome. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us on today's webinar between Cloud Coach and Asaph Advisors. Today, we'll be talking about mastering professional services, specifically the strategies for resource management, service delivery, and consulting success. So thank you again, everyone, for making the time. We appreciate it. Let's go and get started. A couple of housekeeping items before we go ahead and get rolling with the content in today's session. First and foremost, we're recording today's session. Everybody that's registered, everybody that's joined, you will be receiving a live URL of the recording. If you have colleagues, peers, people within your network that weren't able to join or that you think this conversation would be applicable to, we really encourage, of course, the sharing of that recording. Today, as far as engagement and how that's going to go through today's webinar, we've enabled the live Q&A functionality through Zoom. So by all means, if there is a question that you have related to one of the topics that we're discussing in today's session, please feel free to submit a question through the chat. I'll be on the other side monitoring that. If it's something where we have the time and is maybe applicable, I'll bring it up for discussion between Terrell, Mark, and myself if appropriate. If not, I'll go ahead and respond quickly to your question, and we'll go ahead and continue rolling through today's session. Last but not least, we will also have contact information for both the Cloud Coach team and the Asaph Advisors team at the end of today's session. If there's something that interests you on either part, and you want to go ahead and schedule a follow-up, we'd of course love to connect with you one-on-one. Let's go ahead and meet the speakers. My name, starting with myself, Tommy Thorne. I'm one of the strategic account executives here at Cloud Coach. I've been with the organization just about 6 years now. And with me is my counterpart, Terrell Carlton. He leads our solution engineering department here at Cloud Coach. Actually, prior to coming over to the pre-sales side as well, he used to lead our onboarding team. So not only familiar with some of the processes that Mark's going to be talking about, but familiar, of course, with the Cloud Coach tool in practice as well. But just for a couple quick introductions, we met Mark last year. We went ahead and showed him a demonstration of Cloud Coach, which is a project management and PSA solution. We had some great conversations. A lot of the best practices that his team at Asaph really preach and practice turns out to be kind of baked into the Cloud Coach solution as well. So today we're going to kind of do a unique webinar, really a mix of show and tell, where we're going to have Mark kind of break down really his 3 important keys to overall consulting success and service delivery. And we're going to balance that with some demonstration of the Cloud Coach product by Terrell today as we look at some of the benefits that are inherent in a PSA solution like Cloud Coach. So very excited for this webinar. Very excited to have Mark here. Mark, do you mind giving a quick introduction and getting the ball started?
Sure, thanks. Thanks for having me here. And thanks for everybody for joining. Mark Sloan, I've been in consulting professional services for over 30 years now. Started my career at Accenture, left to take a job to manage a team of 8. And by the 5 years later, I'd grown it to 1,600 people. And through that, really sort of built a playbook for how to run a consulting and professional services organization. And for the bulk of the last 15 years, have been consulting back to the industry on those best practices and how they've evolved, over time. And so today, as we dig in, we're really going to be getting into three core components of our services optimization framework. The first is around resource management. Obviously, it's going to impact utilization. As if not more importantly, I think it's going to impact client satisfaction, revenue, and that all important relationship with the sales team. On the go-to-market side, it's really going to help. How do you streamline the sale of professional services? Everyone wants to sell software as a service these days. I tongue-in-cheekly say, but we should be selling services as a product. And I'll get into what that means. But the whole intent here is to speed the process, speed the time to closing a deal, and again, enhance that relationship with the sales team because you never say it depends anymore. And then the third area on the delivery side, and some people chafe a little bit when I call these soft skills. These are consultative skills, right? How do we take the technical professional services staff that we have, make them more consultative, drive client sat, drive additional revenue, and really make them more effective and impactful when they're out there delivering with the team. So, first thing I want to dig into is resource management. And as I said, when I went out to this company and my job spec said lead a team of 8, and the company launched a new software product, the sales team was super excited about what this sales process, the sales cycle, because it was a much shorter sales cycle than they were used to with what they had sold historically. So I had a VP of sales telling anyone that would listen, Sloan's going to be 500 people short if all my deals hit. And I looked at my job spec that said 8 and said, no one's going to let me open 500 recs. But I had to figure out a way to manage this, right? How do I manage expectations? How do I really get under what is in that 500? And that's really where I built this overall process. And break it down into 3 layers. There's the staffing layer, which everyone that's listening is accustomed to. This is what I call the -10 to +15 day window, right? Something sold, project's in flight, it's going to start tomorrow. Who's going to fill that critical role, right? And we all do that. There's forecasting, right? Which is really getting ahead of the curve. And this is how I got ahead of the curve with this, VP of sales. This is translating your sales pipeline to a resource pipeline so that you can start to break down, okay, how many people do I need? Where am I going to need them? What type of roles am I going to need them? More importantly, you've got it spread across time, and then you can probability adjust it. So this VP was right. If every single deal hit on the exact same day, we needed 500 people. If they hit according to their close dates in Salesforce, we needed 100 people. If they hit according to their probability, we needed 17.25 people, right? That was a much easier number to get my head wrapped around, to get finance to, understand, and then to get HR to start opening recs. And really, we'd get out there and we would do what I call warm pool recruiting. We go interview people. We tell them we like them. We're not quite ready to hire yet, but let's stay in touch. And we'd assign them a buddy and stay in touch. And we were able to keep about 65, 75% of the candidates warm so that when deals closed, we could make an offer. And within 2-3 weeks, we were onboarding resources, right? So staffing, if you're stuck in staffing, it's you're scrambling, right? And it's a mad dash to try and find people to get it. When you can elevate to forecasting, staffing takes care of itself, right? And it almost becomes more of an afterthought. To make all of that stick, right? You've got to build some processes, right? You've got to checkpoint with sales on the pipeline. You've got to checkpoint with finance. You've got to show your analysis, say, hey, look, according to the data, this gap in resources is getting bigger. We really better step up recruiting. You can also use it on the downside. Hey, we're showing a surplus of resources. This is the type of talent we're going to have available. Let's put some sales campaigns together and go, get out there and do that, right? So you can feed all this in there. And that's the process. And I will say when we first started this 20 years ago, when I was building this consulting and professional services group, we were doing it in Excel, right? And this is pre most PSA solutions. We were early stage, so Excel was what we could afford. This tool affectionately became known as the pig because it got so big, right? And the beauty of where we are in today's world, folks like Cloud Coach, have built in the reports and analysis that you really need to really make this happen.
Love that. I'll jump in and kind of illustrate sort of what Mark's alluding to there. So if I move over, Mark kind of mentioned kind of this idea of Metrics, being able to start to show numbers around the process and around sort of these resourcing implications. One of the benefits of a broader system for, as we're going to sort of get into these different sections that Mark introed, one of the benefits of having all of that information in one spot is the ability to not only start to have data-driven conversations, but then also be able to make decisions across different parts of the organization off of a single data set, or off of a combined data set, if you will, inside of a system. So we're talking about resourcing now. We can look at sort of resource utilization rates or assigned hours and things like that if we look at these widgets over here. We can also look at more of a tactical, what are our resources working on? How busy is our current resource pool? As well as Mark mentioned, start looking out into the future. What are we looking at from a sales pipeline? How busy could we be if all of those deals closed? As Mark mentioned, now we're able to nuance that expectation. When are we going to need them based on that sales cycle? We're gonna expand on this a little bit more here in a little bit. But then I can combine not only how busy am I currently, how busy is our staff based on the work that's in progress, but then layering on this concept of placeholders or allocations, we can then look at and start to plan for when might we need to start staffing up, whether that is hiring, whether it's kind of keeping those resource prospects warm and kind of looking to hire quickly. Maybe it's temporary help if we've got a couple of these random spikes and not necessarily a consistent load. Maybe we're looking at some temporary contracting. Either way, we're able to use data to start to fund those different conversations and not have to just sort of take a guess or use a massive spreadsheet that's losing efficiency as it gets updated over time. So as Mark mentioned, we want to dig into a little bit more of kind of the, I think you might be coining this phrase, this whole idea of services as a product. So patent pending, trademark pending. But I want to pass it back over to Mark to look at kind of how do we start to enable kind of this go-to-market process with some of these ideas in mind. So let me click this next one. Back to you, Mark.
Sure, thank you. And yeah, what I want everyone to do right now is set aside, if not throw away, everything you've been taught about pricing in professional services. I was taught for 12 years at Accenture, never commit on a price in a second discussion, right? You've got to do a detailed scoping analysis before you could even give a range to a customer. And that made sense, right? It was good education. I used it as we grew this services group to $400 million. Let's go in, let's look at what they need to do, let's give them a price. The challenge in today's world, right, 20, 25 years later, is people don't want to wait. People want to move. And we all in professional services are now really implementing our own product, right? So when I was at Accenture, we were implementing multiple products. So maybe we had some expertise, but we didn't have all the expertise. We're implementing our product over and over and over again. What we should be doing to avoid the answer, it depends, when we're asked about price, is define what it is we're going to sell, right? Define the deliverables, define the work plan, define the resource plan, price it. So when a customer says, hey, what's it going to take to do that quick strike? What's it going to take to do the full implementation? What's it going to take to do a proof of concept? You've already got a price for a scope. Now, so you can answer that question about price quickly, right? One. Two, you can sit down with the customer when you review the predefined statement of work. They may want to do some trade-offs. Well, we don't need this, and hey, we're thinking we're going to need that. Great. But they're driving that time frame. They're driving the extra work to put that together, not you. So it really helps on the front end driving new business. It helps, you're arming your product sales force with a service as a product that they can go out and sell, right? You don't have to come along and tag along to do the scoping on every initial or even second or third call, because you've told them, if you sell this, this is what it will take to deliver. This is what we will charge for it. And then, as importantly, this really starts to feed into your operations, right? So one, it's going to feed into your financial forecasting, and the CFO is going to like it because it becomes a lot more predictable and easier to forecast revenue. This also starts to feed back into that resource management forecasting process I was talking about, right? So if I know I'm selling this product and here's the resource plan, hey, as soon as that hits the pipeline, that hits my resource pipeline. And I can track it and I can understand what skills I'm going to need, when I might need them. And I can start to look at the team that I have. Do I have the right skills coming available at that time? Do I need to do some cross training, right? So there's multiple benefits to this. But the overall arching umbrella of the benefit is it will make your life as a professional services resource so much easier if you do this and drive this consistency right from the beginning.
Exactly. Well said. And even kind of speaking just on the sales side, obviously those conversations with the customer, it's way more transparent, it's way more honest, and it feels more collaborative too. Like you said, you kind of put some control in their hands where you're viewing maybe a standard statement of work that's obviously prepackaged and is designed as a product. And you could of course collaboratively go through that if there's adjustments that need to be made for the client. So with this kind of process, it makes life easier for the sales side, what we were just talking about earlier with kind of the forward planning of capacity and your resources. It's always comfortable, of course, knowing on the sales side that you're going to have a confident answer on when a project can be taken on, when resources are going to be available. So it, of course, helps with the actual execution of these deliverables, but helps setting expectations up front as well.
And the thing I'd layer on top of that is right because there can be a fear of, well, hey, look, we might develop a basic, a medium, and a complex package, and sales is only going to sell the basic, right? There are processes you can set up and checkpoints where you're starting to review things as they come into the pipeline, right? A solution review board is what I've called it with certain clients I work with. And the sales team has to come and present, well, here's what we're talking to them about. So we're pulling this offer off the shelf and we're going to position that. And you as a services exec have the authority, the right to poke and prod and question and say, well, I can understand why you might want to propose that because that's the shortest and easiest and least expensive to get in the door. But in the end, they're really going to need this. So, let's propose it, or at least let's give them some of the options, right? So this is not simply defining it and throwing it over the wall to sales. There's still ways to stay involved, provide that executive oversight and and direction as needed.
Yeah, and layering on that, or just kind of piggybacking on that from a system side, there's some of the benefits that we've seen around onboarding. Cloud Coach, kind of leaning back on kind of the onboarding experience that I've amassed over the last few years, is looking at how the different business processes can start to complement each other. There's sort of I don't know if it's a universal trigger, but there's a common trigger warning around, hey, that's sales to delivery handoff though. Like that's an uncomfortable point in a lot of organizations. And so being able to not only leverage an easier sales process, enabling sales to talk about things better, but not rely on them to scope. Nothing bad's ever happened if a sales rep scopes a project, right? So we want to be able to leverage the experience from the onboarding or the delivery side without necessarily adding a bunch of process or a bunch of pressure to the sales group, allowing them to sort of stick with their process, but then layer on top of that an actual representation of what a level of effort could be, what a price tag could be, what a timeline could be, without a bunch of added administrative effort or room for errors, because you're asking folks to come up with a scope or come up with a level of effort without that direct experience. They're not responsible for it. They're not going to maybe answer for that number. It's the delivery group, it's the consultants that actually have to go and deliver that work. So enabling a system like this, where you have the sales platform tied in with the PSA or with the delivery process, allows the delivery team, the onboarding team, the consulting team to manage the different pieces of work that are being sold. That idea of services as a product, well, delivery gets to have input. They get to manage what is that product, what is being sold, and what does that look like from an execution standpoint. And we see that commonly inside of like a Salesforce-based workflow here around this idea of products or SKUs that are being added to the opportunity, either via a cost price quote tool, any of the other processes that are common within Salesforce pipeline management. All of that can then be leveraged and linked to the different items that are going to be delivered. So if we notice just the subtext down here around a specific project phase or a milestone or a deliverable, that's going to be added dynamically into an overall project plan. So when this deal either closes, or one of the common pieces we see, if you notice my stage value up here, is not closed won. It's close, got a high probability. We're not necessarily having to wait for closed won to start that planning process, to start that staffing process, to start and get in front of those different conversations that we need to have on the delivery side. But those products are then flowing in to that actual project plan, to the work that actually needs to be delivered, starting to set out timelines, starting to set out what is the staffing implication. Excellent. The product allowed sales to quote accurately the number of hours, the right price tag. We've got that sort of layered. We've got that handled. But now on the delivery side, now we're already starting to get down the road on the project execution, even before there's a signature. We're having the system sort of take care of some of this planning, where now we can see not only the different milestones, the different tasks that are breaking that down, but we can actually have that relate back to that product that was sold, so that not only are we able to see during the project what was that product, what was that service product that was purchased by the customer, linked to the actual execution of it. But now all of that is layering into that dashboard that I showed earlier, where we're starting to layer in and report on a full product implementation lifecycle, where that product got sold, how did it perform, what tweaks could we potentially make to how we're templatizing that into the future. So not only do we have sort of this work breakdown structure implication, but we also can start to get in front of that from a resourcing implication and have things like either named resource or just more of like a generic kind of a Z resource or an allocation for the types of roles that we're going to need if and when that project does sign, which allows us to then layer in to that screen that I showed first, where now we can see what is actual work that's been signed versus what is that work that's upcoming based on that sales pipeline, and start to nuance all of that information and allow it to all inform itself, allow the individual teams to concentrate on what they're best at, but overall to gain a bunch of efficiency around how we are selling, how we're executing into that work. So tools are helpful. It helps us systematize these processes, make them repeatable, make them improvable as we start to report on them. But want to pass it back to Mark, because a lot of times the system's great. It starts to enable our people, but the people really are where that magic is and where the kind of that differentiator is. So Mark, do you want to kind of jump into the soft skills piece here?
Sure,
Actually,
sure.
real quick, do you mind if I
Oh,
pause you? We actually had two questions on the last one. Terrell, do you mind going? One's kind of product focused, and then one's kind of more direct for you on the sales as a process or sales as a product, Mark. But first one, riffing off the Gantt view, if adjustments on the opportunity were made, whether that's resources, roles, hours prior to an opportunity close, how does the system kind of allow to make adjustments in real time? How can you kind of manipulate maybe already an existing template? Do you mind speaking to that a little bit, Terrell?
Oh, so one of the most common couple of inputs that we see, nuance, that sort of, hey, we've got a starting point, templates are great, but what about real life sort of scenarios? Oftentimes we will see the timeline estimate and or the resource estimate be nuanced by maybe it's a time estimate category that I'm showing over here. Maybe there's sort of a t-shirt size concept where we could have hey, if it's a small project, we're going to stick with the template. If it's large, we're going to multiply everything by 1.5 and allow the system to influence that way. The other point that I'll make is just around the idea of quantity. So if there's more than one quantity on a product, maybe that's a second milestone. Maybe it's just influencing that milestone template in some way. That's where the flexibility around how we automate, how those business rules are applied into a process like this becomes super helpful, because we can make that the right fit for more organizations or for different organizations, and we don't necessarily have to paint with as broad a brush around those deliverables.
Perfect. And then Mark, question kind of for you. And you already kind of spoke a little bit to this, but really the question's around how can professional services orgs overcome really internal resistance to shifting from maybe what was historically more of a customized services model to more of a productized model. And I guess this totally relates with what Terrell and I hear a lot. A lot of leaders, they have the desire to get more templatized because that's going to return, well, like you said, easier sales motion, but also can give them stronger and more consistent KPIs that maybe relate back to a baseline. So how do you kind of slowly start to move away from that customization mindset? And then how do you kind of bring the team along with as well?
Yeah. Well, so as I go in and help companies implement services as a product, one of the first things we do is we look at the data, right? Let's go look at the past 6, 12 months, 18 months. What are the most common projects that we've delivered, right? Hey, it was implementing this product, or it was this phase of implementation of this product. Let's go look at that historical data. And there will be different sizes, right? T-shirt sizing, there'll be the small, medium, and largest, but see what the patterns are, right? And start pre-populating your statement of work. A lot of time it'll be a copy and paste from an existing one, right? Get it to the way you want, and get comfortable that, hey, this would satisfy 95% of what we did on these last 10 projects, right? And so do that as a team, then sit down with finance, then sit down with sales and show them, right? Show them how, hey, look, here's the analysis, right? We did 100 projects last year and 40 of them fit within this mold, right? So the sales cycle on those was 6 weeks. Look, if we pre-package this, right, and these all were delivered within 20% total hours, dollars of each other, right? Okay, so look, we can do this, right? And on some of these, we would have had a little lower margin, but on some of them we would have had a little higher margin, right? And so what we're managing to is the averages. And so if you can, on the average, hit that margin target that you're looking for, and shorten the sales cycle and the cost of sales, you're already up, right? So you got to present the data, you got to show folks how it is similar, and how you got to show your finance person how we're not going to lose our shirt doing it this way, right? We're still going to have scope defined. We're still going to manage scope. So if something deviates from the standard that we sold, we'll go back and do a change request, right? When they want that fifth interface that's not included in scope, that'll be incremental revenue and a change order, right? So, I think it seems complex, but it's, you just approach it simply. Use the data, build the statements of work, build the delivery artifacts, and just start getting the different stakeholders on board internally. Customers will generally be all over it because, hey, look, they don't want to sit around a table and have to answer 50 questions about what they want. They want you as the experts to come in and tell them, here's what we believe you need. Let's review it, tweak it if we need to, and get started.
No, it's 85% of people resist, 85% people resist change. So I mean, there's a sense, I like that question. There's a sense that, like, hey, it's a webinar, nobody ever pushes back. This is just, it just makes sense and everybody jumps on board. Not necessarily. So I like that question to kind of get us a little closer to the ground here. That's good stuff. Well, I guess let's keep going into the kind of the soft skills piece here, Mark, and we'll kind of move into this last section.
Yeah. And I was on a call earlier this week where someone took a little offense or a little pause to soft skills, right? They're really consultative skills, right? And so as professional services people, right, and I was guilty of this when I was running a professional services group, we would take the most technical person, right? We'd throw them out there. They would do an excellent job with the product, but they weren't trained on some of the things I got trained at the Big Six, and colleagues of mine did, in terms of how to manage the customer, right? How to proactively interact with the customer. And so what I advise companies to do is enhance the technical skills of the team with consultative skills, right? And some of this is awareness, right? Some of it's, hey, look, what are the natural ebbs and flows across the project lifecycle? And how can you, and I use this word frequently when I'm draining this slide, how do we proactively manage the customer through that, right? Don't wait for a customer to come to you. If you know there's going to be a crunch time, what are the steps you can take just ahead of crunch time to prepare them for it? Hey, we're heading into this phase. It's going to be difficult, right? And just get them comfortable and on board with that. The second module of this, the training is around what it means to be a consultant, right? Consultants are guides, right? And again, it's proactively, you're half a step, a day ahead of your customer so that you can guide them there, right? And it's about building these trusted advisor relationships to where they seek you out. And it may not even be something that they're gonna, they're gonna pay you for, but hey, they've got another situation within their organization and they just want your opinion because they know you're thoughtful, because they know you've been in multiple environments. You've probably seen something similar, and you can provide guidance. And then they are going to come back to you for that second, third, and fifth project where, hey, now we have this issue. We've got this opportunity. I want you on board because I know I can count on you to get it done. The third consultative skill that I think folks need to develop is around communications, right? As technical resources, we're good at explaining the details. Sometimes you've got to elevate that message, right? What are the most important things you want your client and your client's boss to take away from a meeting, right? Hey, look, project's going well. We got a lot going on, right? You need to bore them with the details. You start with the high level. So it's really about how do you structure those messages, key points, and then, have some details. And if they want to probe further, be prepared for it, but you don't have to present everything. The second component of communications, we all deal with this, right? It's sometimes you get to deliver good news. Sometimes you have to deliver bad news. And one of the core things that I've found, and this is backed up by research, if you're going to deliver bad news, get it all out at once, right? If you're going to be over budget and off schedule, you don't want to walk in on Tuesday and Friday and deliver two bad messages, right? You want to explain it all at once, explain what you're doing to correct it. But with good news, if you're going to be ahead of budget and ahead of schedule, you might deliver one Tuesday and one Thursday, right? And that's going to create this goodwill with the customer. And with those communication skills, right, then it's how do you leverage those with risk and issue management? Again, how do you proactively work with your customer to, you've identified this, proactively go to them. Hey, we've got this risk, or we've got this issue. Here's what we're doing to work through it. We'd like to get you engaged. Can you get some assistance? What do you think about this, right? Show them that you're on top of the situation before they find out about it from someone else. Then, the other focus here is on scope management and client satisfaction, right? It can feel uncomfortable at times to say no to a customer, right? Hey, can you do this? Can you add this? Could you do one more interface? And if it's not in scope, right, that's extra cost for you. It's like if a contractor was working on your kitchen and they said, oh, I need more money for the dishwasher. Well, I already paid for the dishwasher, so why am I going to give you more money, right? Figure out a way to say no, right? Say, hey, that's interesting. We could do that. We've got the scope that we've got. Is there something here that's less of a priority that we could push to a next phase? Is this something that I could get a change order for? Again, just proactively drive it, leverage the communication skills that you've built to communicate that, and put the decision making back in the customer where they want to pay for it or they want to trade scope in and out. And that really gets to the last focus here, right? And it's selling skills for the consultant. And this is not, I want every professional services resource to pick up a bag and get out there and start knocking on doors and selling. This is about when you're out with a customer, opening up your eyes and a little bit, looking around and seeing what else they're doing and seeing how things that you and the company have done in the past could make that better, right? So how do you position what you do and communicate in terms of value, not cost, right? Like, hey, did you know we could fix that thing over there and it would cost $100,000, right? That's cost. Hey, did you know you guys have some operational efficiencies over there? And at another client, we were able to take those out and they saw a 10% improvement in cycle time, right? That's a discussion the customer wants to have, right? They're going to invite you in. Well, how did you do that? Oh, okay. And all right, well, what did that cost? Well, it was a fraction of the benefit they got, right? It was X, right? And so that's when clients will appreciate you bringing these ideas to them and having them decide, like, yeah, that is something I want to pursue, or yeah, I can see the value in that. I just don't have the bandwidth, or I don't have the budget to pursue it right now, but come back to me in 3 months and let's talk about it again. And that's being a trusted advisor, communicating effectively, and and really putting your client at the heart of what you're doing. And so you think about sort of the theme of what we've been discussing so far today. It's resource management, in my mind, this is the most important thing a services team needs to focus on. It's the heart of what you do. If you can get the right person at the right place at the right time, the work gets done, it gets done well, clients are happy, your sales and finance teams are happy, your projects go well, right? Once you've got that going, right, then you can focus on this services as a product concept, right? How do we package up what this great, team does, right? How do we define it? How do we arm the sales team to go sell it? And then how do we operationalize that, right? And part of that part of doing that, operationing it, is that you're going to be able to get better leverage out of less tenured resources because it's repeatable, right? Your experts have predefined how to approach these projects. You've built artifacts to support that. And now from a resource management standpoint, we don't need the expert in every role. We can get leverage out of the full team. We can add new team members, and they're going to learn and grow with the artifacts we've got. And then as you deliver that, right, it is about building those consultative soft skills, right? So that, again, the team's more effective when they're out there, in front of the customer day in and day out doing their work. And that feeds into resource management, right? Because then all of this just helps all of the resources become more valuable, and easier to deploy across multiple different types of roles and projects.
Awesome. I think one of the reasons Tommy and I were excited and looking forward to working with Mark on this webinar was just sort of the complementary pieces around, hey, yeah, systems. If you're familiar with Cloud Coach, if we see some of our current customers on this call, it's a system, it's a product. We're building a product around the exact processes that Mark is talking about and trying to embody the idea of process, of enabling the people to do their job rather than just throw features at it for feature's sake. It really is trying to enable those teams and trying to kind of create this holistic workflow, this holistic process that kind of draws the resource or the organization or the department into kind of the system in a way that is enabling them. It's helping them track how things are going so that they can go back and improve it later, but not just having a product to have a product. It really is to try and stay in the background so that they're able to be that trusted advisor and really help that customer along, whether it's onboarding, whether it's just pure consulting services, whatever that sort of specific use case is. Having this kind of sales process where we're able to kind of create these service offerings or these quick starts or these different implementation packages as products, which helps enable our sales group, allowing that to funnel directly into the resource planning that we talked about. So now delivery is benefiting from that sales cycle. Imagine that, sales and delivery getting along. The idea that now we're able to start planning for that staffing ahead of time and not have to panic or push that kickoff date and drive up that time between signature and kickoff, have that go up. We can start to get in front of that and start to plan for that better, as well as just managing how busy are our resources on a day-to-day basis or on a week-to-week basis. Are we making sure we don't have somebody overloaded while somebody is on the bench, which may net out on a graph or on a report somewhere, maybe even in Mark's gargantuan spreadsheet, but maybe somebody's handling a lot of that effort and somebody's kind of twiddling their thumbs and they're not engaged in as much work. So it enables us to kind of see both sides of that coin, that future planning, as well as Mark mentioned, that kind of that 10 to 15 day window. How are we managing people's workload right now in the near term while at the same time planning for that? And we see a major benefit in having that all be in the same spot and have all of that kind of funneling into itself. And then all of that then funnels into, okay, we've kind of talked about these kind of planning benefits and the forecasting benefits and things like that. But then now that we've upskilled our team with these consultative skills, I necessarily want to rely on soft skills as a term if that's going to divide the room. But the idea that like we've enabled our team to be better consultants, to actually be that trusted advisor, to come alongside and help those customers along. How can the system then further enable them? And a couple of the things that Mark pointed out really resonated around this idea of being able to just track scope, things like whether it's timeline creep or scope creep, enabling that diplomatic no. I liked the phrase no is not a four-letter word. My children at bedtime asking for candy would disagree. But at the same time, it enables us to show the data, hey, that's going to push us over, whether it's on timeline and being able to easily show that, whether it's showing things like our project budget or our actual margin. All of that enables us to have more data points to show the customer or our internal groups, here's why we need to make a particular decision. Here's why we need to hold the line. And then allowing us to, if we do pursue a change order on a particular piece of work, being able to show the history of where that came from, being able to create these different items against the different parts of the project plan quickly and easily, whether it is a change request, whether it's the risk tickets that Mark mentioned earlier, being able to track those risks and issues, be upfront and transparent as much as we can with where those are, where do we see those, what's our plan to mitigate them. All of these things can then be linked to particular points in the project so that we can go back if we're doing a retro or we need to get some more information. We can go back and tell a better story because these data points are informing each other. It's not just on another random spreadsheet on my desktop that I forgot to share with somebody. It's all starting to kind of fuel itself inside of the system.
And you say that too, huge part of it, right, is keeping the customer and the client engaged as well. So like you said, that's one of the main reasons that we're constantly taking people off of tools like spreadsheets and moving people out of inboxes is we know obviously the customers want to feel like they're on the same side as well. So yeah, Terrell, you even mind showing our external project view?
Yeah, no, it's a great segue. That idea of being transparent, keeping everybody informed and on the same loop. The transition kind of point that I'll use is one of just another kind of, again, thoughtful feature. Where are we taking our notes? Where are we keeping track of what is being discussed on these meetings? What if it's just right against the same project? And then what if we could take those notes and display them inside of a customer experience where they have read-only access? They can contribute some comments and things like that where it would be helpful, but then they can look back and see the notes, see the action items. Maybe we're using the decision part of that RAID moniker there, and we're actually making decisions and tracking those as tickets within a portal that they have access to, and they're not having to wait until Friday afternoon when a PM takes 2 hours to curate a status report for that project. It's just in the system. It's just enabling that communication in an even more transparent way. Maybe we are showing some risks, maybe not all the risks, maybe we show some of the risks, but being able to curate, again, the information that would be helpful for the customer, whether it's our risks and the mitigation strategy over here on the side panel. Maybe we tune up which fields we're displaying to help communicate that right information. And then just the overall status of this project. If we're waiting on our team, we can see that. If we're waiting on their team, maybe we even have deliverables that are assigned to those customer stakeholders to help drive some of that accountability and really start to have everybody on the same page within a system that is then allowing the consultants to do exactly that. They're able to consult and not have to just be moving things around and copy and pasting into a spreadsheet. And well, now I have to make a copy onto my client version. And well, I got to make sure that none of the risks that we see internally are being communicated yet because we don't actually know if they're going to bear out. Like all of that can just be held for that person inside of the system and allow them to really concentrate on their job, really. So that's sort of where I wanted to wrap up kind of this idea of a PSA, and obviously we're connecting it to that sales process as well, keep more teams in the loop on things, and then enable those consultants to leverage the soft skills and allow them to concentrate on what they're trying to accomplish there. So I'll pass it back over to Mark for just kind of a quick summary of what we've kind of talked about, but then kind of what he's seen kind of in real life. Like how does this actually bear out as a benefit here?
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, as I said, right, but with the heart and resource management and bringing it all together, these things can have, real world impacts, right? The resource management process that I was discussing, I used it to grow a services group from 0 to 1,600 resources. I worked with a client who we implemented this process. They grew by $100 million in 18 months and were ultimately acquired by Cognizant. And on the go-to-market side, I've helped companies achieve significant growth rates relative to what the industry was experiencing because it just was more straightforward, more efficient, more direct to go sell, right? And as I talked about, these are all three of these things are really tightly linked, right? Again, if you can get resource management right, you're going to mobilize resources when you need them, where you need them, and you're going to know with enough time to prepare when you're going to have a gap, or a surplus of resources, and you can course correct, right? Again, that all feeds into what you can do on the go-to-market side, right? When your sales team has confidence that whatever they sell, you're going to be able to put resources to work, they're going to be pretty excited about that, and they're going to, just the confidence level increases, right? You're going to get away from, at least what I've experienced and seen others experience, of, well, how do you know you're going to be able to start, right? I'm not comfortable putting this in front of my customer because I'm a little skittish that we're going to have the right people to get going on a project, right? With resource management, that's going to help you. With services as a product, that's going to help you, right? Because then it's, hey, look, we've got the artifacts, we've got the templates, we've got the tools that even somebody that doesn't understand this product can pick up and use and get started. Again, with your resource management process, you're going to build balanced teams, some deeply tenured and some less tenured, so that you're complementing each other's skills and everybody's growing. So I think if you focus on those three things, it's really going to help accelerate what you're doing from a services perspective.
It's well said, and it's a good, clear breakdown too. Everyone, thank you so much for attending today's webinar. We really enjoyed this discussion. Mark, thank you so much for being a part of this. We're going to sit tight for the next couple of minutes. If there's any questions that you would like Terrell, Mark, and I to go ahead and have discussion about, by all means, please feel free to submit that in the chat. If we see the room's kind of dying out, we'll go ahead and end it shortly. But good to see so many of you again. Thanks so much for the time and the engagement. That was fun.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, everybody.
Give just a couple more minutes, see if there's any questions.
Sure.
I double checked the QR codes too, so people wouldn't be scanning me, getting Terrell.
Link to an Instapot on Amazon. Yeah.
Exactly. Venmo.
Yeah. Oh, oops. That's my bad.
Actually, we just got a question here, I believe. Thank you for whoever just submitted that question. It came in as anonymous. By all means, more than happy to schedule time. If you go ahead and schedule or scan my QR code, it'll take you to my LinkedIn where there will be a book with me scheduler. Please feel free to use that. If not, you can go ahead and send over your email and I'm happy to contact you afterwards. Perfect. Okay. We might be off the hook. Again, everyone, thank you so much. We'll go ahead and close out today's session. Mark, thank you again very much. We appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you all.
Cheers.
Awesome.
Thanks.